With the new Jade update, DE has made it a lot easier to obtain your first Necramech, the Voidrig. I'm Tipsy and today we'll be going over how to farm the Necramech after the Jade Shadows update. So on June the 18th, the Jade Shadows update came out to Warframe, and with this came some improvements to the Necramech farm. This has made it a lot easier to farm than before, and it will be definitely quicker. They also moved where you actually buy the damaged Necramech parts to farther after doing the Heart of Deimos quest. So now you don't have to worry about actually doing a big grind for extra faction just to gain access to these broken parts, as they are now obtainable with just Entrati Standing at 2000 each per part. On top of this, they also changed the recipe to craft the Necramech parts and has made it a lot more accessible for newer players. So to obtain your Necramech, the first step will be completing the Heart of Deimos quest. This quest can be found in your Obiter at your Codex station after having completed the Mars Junction. Upon completion of the Heart of Deimos, you will be rewarded with these rewards right here, and as you can see, you will get all the blueprints for the Necramech called the Voidrig. So once you have completed the Heart of Deimos, you are now ready to get your damaged Necramech parts. To get these parts, you will have to head to the Necrolist and find Father right here. You can fast travel to him with the menu, otherwise he will be here on the map. Then talk to him and browse wares. In his wares he should have the broken Necramech parts. These will cost you 2000 Entrati Standing each, in a total of 8000. If you're wondering how the Entrati Standing actually works, we will go over that in the next part, as the standing is also required to get some of the crafting resources needed to craft the Necramech. So to get your standing with the Entrati, you need to obtain the family tokens, and the easiest way to do this will be the Bounties in the Cambion Drift. To find these Bounties, you will have to travel to Mother with the fast travel menu, otherwise she is located here on the map. You can then talk to Mother and see both your standing but also the bounties that are accessible right now. If you then head into the bounties and hover over one of the bounties, you can then see the rewards for the current bounty you are looking at. If you look at the top left, you will be able to see how many Mother tokens you will actually get upon completion of this bounty. Each Mother token is worth 100 Entrati Standing once you turn them in. To get the broken parts, which is 8000 standing, you will have to have 80 Mother tokens from here. And you will also need 8000 standing to get the blueprints for the different resources which are needed for crafting the Necramech. These two things together will cost a total of 160 Mother tokens in total, which is the equivalent of 16,000 standing you will need. Once you have obtained some tokens, the way to actually turn them into standing will be at Grandmother, which you can find in the fast traveling menu or here on the map. Once you talk to her, there will be a dialogue option called Trade Tokens. In here you can trade your tokens for standing with the Entrati family faction. You can also get tokens from other family members, but I highly recommend to save those as they will be needed for other stuff in the game. And Mother tokens are just fairly easy to come by, so just use those. You will have to be rank 1 Stranger with the Entrati to actually buy 2 of the main blueprints you need. So how do you actually rank up the Entrati family? So once you reach 5000 standing, you can't gain any more standing before ranking up to rank 1 Stranger. And this will cost you 5000 standing, but also 3 Spinal Cord section resources. As we already know how to get standing from the last part of the video, we will go over how to actually get the Spinal Core section here, which is a resource you can obtain in 3 different ways. One is fishing, a second one is isolation vaults, and the third is destroying crates in the Cambion Drift. For the first one, fishing, I highly recommend doing this anyways, just because you will actually need to fish for some of the resources to craft the Necramech. So in Cambion Drift, there's 2 fish called the Chronicord and the Vitruspina that can actually drop the Spinal Cores. This is gotten when you cut up the fish at Daughter in the Necrolist. And if you haven't fished before, you will have to head to Daughter in the Necrolist here on the map, and you can then buy the Spiry Spear from her. This is used to fish in the Cambion Drift, so you have to have one of these spears to actually fish here. And if you have not fished before in Warframe, you will then have to go to your arsenal and actually equip a fishing spear. To do this, just go to your arsenal and go to your gear wheel and then just equip your fishing spear to an available spot. Once you have gotten your fishing spear and it is equipped into a gear wheel, you'll then have to head out to the Cambion Drift, but before you head out I recommend putting your lobby settings to solo. So you can actually go into the Cambion Drift without having to worry about other players, but also just having your free time. Also doing it on solo will allow you to actually pause the game while inside the mission. Then after that you'll just head down to the door here to enter the Cambion Drift. You can also do this with the navigation map to actually get into it. In the Cambion Drift, I recommend coming to one of the 3 spots here, as these will be cave fish we're looking for. So one of the 3 cave, you can go for those. I will just go for this cave up here. Once you're in your fishing spot, you can then go to your gear wheel and then equip your fishing spear. But do keep in mind, the fish we are looking for are actually rare, so it might take some time before they actually show up. And for that, there's a little tip that is just catch one fish, walk a little bit away, and then wait a few seconds and come back. This should reset the fish pond and the fish in it, so you can kind of respawn it a little bit faster. Now just fish until you catch the needed amount. The chronic cord drops 2 spinal core sections, while the Vitus Spina drops 1 spinal core section when cutting up the fish. Once you're done, just head back to the necrolist and then to daughter again and use the dialog option cut fish. In this menu you can choose the fish you want to cut up, so just choose the Vitus Spina or chronic cord or just any fish you want to cut up and get the materials for. And that's how you get spinal cores through fishing in the Cambion Drift. For the second way is doing isolation vaults, bounties, as these may actually also reward you with a spinal core section. But it will also have a chance to drop some of the other crafting resources needed for the Necramech. These rewards comes from doing the vault at the end of the mission. As in this place there will be some Entrati crates which can be destroyed and has a chance to drop the resources needed. To start an isolation vault, head back to Mother and then under the bounty tab at the bottom there's isolation vaults. The isolation vaults usually come in 3 different tiers, and this was actually the old way of farming broken Necramech parts, because in this mission, depending on the tier, an amount of Necramechs will spawn, which when killed have a chance to drop a broken Necramech part. But to actually get the spinal cores down here, you will have to look for the Entrati crates, as these has the chance of dropping the spinal cords. These crates can spawn all around the Origin structure once you're down under the ground, but also at the end during the vault phase. There you are guaranteed to get a few crates no matter what. So once you're done with the bounty, you basically have a chance to extract, but there's also a bonus objective you can do, and that is finding Lloyd down here. Lloyd will usually stand by like the vault door, so just see if you can find the vault door and this will start the bonus objective. Once the bonus objective has started, you will just have to guide Lloyd around to 4 different points and then back to the door again. Then you or one of your teammates will have to go into your operator form and actually shoot the right code here. The code will be shown from top to bottom and you will just have to shoot it in the right order to actually open the door. And if you fail the code, you have 3 chances, but if you fail all 3, you will just have failed the bonus objective and you can't get into the vault. And to actually do this operator form, you will have to do the mission called the Second Dream. But once you're inside the vault, at the left and right side there's gonna be some resource nodes, and then down in the middle you will then be able to find a lot of crates you can destroy for a good amount of resources. Lastly, there's the third way, which is actually destroying the Entrati caskets, same as the isolation vault, but these are just found in the Cambion Drift, near Origin structures which can contain the spinal core sections. For this method I highly recommend you having the Archwing launcher to actually be able to fly in the Cambion Drift. As this method you will be going around all over the map and actually just destroying a few things, and then once you have done that you will then go back and reset. And if you look at this map right here I've drawn, these red areas are the spots I usually check myself, as these are some of the Origin structures you can find in the Cambion Drift. So I recommend just going around checking these areas out, and then once you have done that, go out of the Cambion Drift and back in and you can do it once again. And then you just have to use your luck and hopefully you get your things you need through destroying these caskets. But there's also a fourth way of actually obtaining these resources, and that is in the Cambion Drift doing the upper list. But that's for a whole nother video, but feel free to research this yourself from another guide. But now that you have obtained your spinal core sections, you will then have to head back to the necrolist and talk with Mother again. This time you will have to click the Entrati Standing and click on the rank up button, which will cost you 5000 standing, but also the 3 spinal core sections you have gotten. Once you are ranked up, you will now be able to obtain even more standing with the Entrati, but you are also the rank of Stranger, so now you can buy 2 extra blueprints needed to actually craft the Necramech. 2 blueprints are resource blueprints, which we will be going over in the next section. Getting the resources for the Necramech. Before we get into how to get the resources, we will actually have to buy the blueprints to craft some of the resources needed. This will require 8000 standing in total to get all the blueprints, but they are permanent blueprints, so you only have to buy them once, and then you can craft them however many times you wish. Find these blueprints, you will have to fast travel to Otak or find him here on the map. Then browse his wares, and the blueprints you're gonna need are these: Tiametrite, Purged Dragonite, Admiral Alloy, Temperate Bapholite, Purified Heciphron, and Developed Namalon. Once you have obtained the blueprints, you're then ready to actually begin farming the resources needed to craft the Necramech. This will take you around a few places and introduce you to both fishing and mining. And here's a little chart of all the resources you will actually need in total to craft the Necramech. If you want to have a bigger look at this picture, you can then find it in the description if you need it. We will be going over each resource and how to obtain them, so here you can use this agenda or actually the timestamps to skip to the part of the video where the resource you are looking for can be obtained. The resources will be split into groups as they can be found on the chart. A lot of the resources are gotten through mining, so if you haven't mined before, you will have to go to Fortuna and talk to Smokefinger and buy his mining gun. Then just equip it like the fishing spear onto your gear wheel and you are ready to mine. For the first resource, that is Adramalium, you will need 60 of these, and this can be found in the Cambion Drift. You will find these resources by mining yellow veins around the Cambion Drift, but can also be found in Cyst in the Cambion Drift. These Cysts can be found around the Cambion Drift and you will just be able to destroy them, and then you might have a chance of actually getting the resource. The next is the Lucent Teroglobes. You will need around 275 of these, and these are generally found in the Cambion Drift. You will be able to find around the origin structure something called the Pacific Outcrops. Once you destroy these nodes, you will get a small amount of Lucent Teroglobes. You can also sometimes obtain these in actually Bounties, so that is also a way to obtain them. The next resource is called Tiametrite, which is also gotten through mining in the Cambion Drift. These are gotten through mining the blue or teal versions of the veins, but can also be gotten from destroying containers in the isolation vaults, but also the Entrati Caskets, which we went over in the last section. The next resource is called the Bapholite, which you can find in the Cambion Drift through mining. Here you will have to mine the yellow veins and they have a chance to drop the Bapholite, but again can also be found in the isolation vault by doing storage containers. But there's also a chance these will drop if you destroy certain cysts around Cambion Drift. The next resource is called Namalon. These are also acquired through mining on the Cambion Drift and is gotten through the yellow veins. Depending on if the Cambion Drift is in the Voam or Fars phase, you will have to mine in these locations. These can also drop through the storage containers in the isolation vaults. The next resource is called Heciphron, and this can be found through mining blue veins around the Cambion Drift. And for the last mining resource on the Cambion Drift is the Dagonic. This is also gotten through mining blue veins on the Cambion Drift, but can also be found in the isolation vault in the storage containers. And there's also certain Entrati urns that will drop these around the Cambion Drift. The next resource you will need is a fishing resource, and you will need 4 of these called the Parasitic Tethermaw. These can be found in fish called the Lobocitrid, which are basically a surface fish in the Cambion Drift. These fish spawn in the Cambion Drift once it's in the Voam phase, so if you hover over the Cambion Drift in the navigation and it says Fars in a few minutes, that means it is currently in the Voam phase. If it says Voam in a few minutes, that means you are currently in the Fars phase. You can also get these in certain cysts around the Cambion Drifts, so just keep that in mind. The next resource is the Spinal core section, which we went over in the last section. But in short, these can be found through fishing in caves. The fish you're looking for are called the Chronicord or the Vitrospina. Keep in mind these fish are a little bit rare, so sometimes it might take a little bit of time to actually find these fish. Doing the bonus objection in isolation vaults may also reward Spinal cores. They might also sometimes drop from Entrati crates, which can be found around origin structures in the Cambion Drift. For the next resource, this is also a fishing resource called the Bionic Filter. These can be gotten through 2 different fish called the Duroid and the Acropulmo. The Acropulmo is a hotspot surface fish which can be found in the Voam rotation, while the Duroid is a hotspot cave fish which can be both found in Fars and Voam. A hotspot in the Cambion Drift is basically the area you're fishing in is glowing a little bit depending on if it's Voam or Fars. So you will have to look for these hotspots to actually be able to find these fish. You can also use Voam residue, which you can buy from the daughter. The next resources will be on the plains of Eidolon on Earth. Normally you will just be looking at caves around the area, but I usually use the cave up at the north here and just head down and usually just mine through that. So once you've gotten down in the cave, you will be looking for red veins to actually get the first resource, Pyrol. This is a resource that drops from the red veins, but can also be dropped from the Tusk Tomber, which is a mini-boss that can spawn around the plains of Eidolon. And the second resource is called Ferros, which also drops from red veins in the plains of Eidolon, and can also drop from the Tusk Tomber. The next resource we'll be going over, you can obtain in Orb Vallis, which is on Venus. The cave I usually use here are this cave you can find here, and I just head all the way down and back up, and then after that I reset and just keep on mining here. The resource you're looking for is called Traverite, and this can be found mining red veins here, and you will need 60 of these. The next few resources can be found in a lot of different ways, so I will just go over where you usually find them and how to get that. The first resource will be Rubido, which can be found both from killing enemies, but also actually from deposits in these missions. So any mission on Phobos, Earth, Pluto, Europa, Sedna and the Void has a chance to actually spawn in these resources. There's also a chance that some bounties might actually contain this as a reward. The next resource is called Oricon Cells, which is actually a rare resource. This resource can be found on Saturn, Ceres and Deimos, and can also be found in deposits. There's also 2 mission bosses which has a higher chance of dropping these when killed. The first boss is General Saget's Rock, which can be found on Saturn in the mission Tetris. The next is the Lieutenant Lich Krill, who can be found in 2 different missions. The first mission is on Mars and is called War, while the second mission is on Ceres and is called Extra. Luckily you only need 10 of these, so it shouldn't be too painful. The next resource is called Muffix, which is also a rare resource you will need 3 of. These can be found on Mercury, Mars, Phobos, Europa and Pluto, in these deposits normally. You also have a chance of killing 2 bosses, which has a higher chance like before. The first boss is called Captain War and can be found 2 different locations. The first is on Mercury in Tolshoi, while the second is on Ceres in Extra mission. So if you have access to the Ceres Extra mission, I recommend doing that, as that has both a chance of dropping the Morphix but also the Oricon cells. The second boss is called Ambulas and can be found on Pluto in the Hades mission. I do not recommend doing this mission, as this mission is a real pain to do. And again, these can also sometimes be found in certain bounties. The next resource is called Nanospores and can be found in Deimos, Saturn, Neptune and Eris. These usually drops from both enemies but also deposits in these missions. These should also be quite easy to come by, as you will need a lot of them, but they are not that hard to get dropping. Next resource is called Plastids, and these can drop on Saturn, Uranus, Phobos, Pluto and Eris. Can also actually be found in the Cambion Drift, as I do have a video on how to farm a lot of these quickly down in the description. But normally you will find these from both enemies but also deposits in these missions. Now that you have gotten all your resources, the next step is actually crafting your Necramech. But before crafting the Necramech in itself, you will have to craft the resources which you bought blueprint for. You will have to craft 60 Admiral Alloy, 30 Phase Tiametrite, 50 Temperate Bapholite, 50 Developed Namalon, 40 Purified Heciphron, and lastly 30 Purged Dragonite. Once you have crafted those, you are then ready to actually begin crafting your Necramech parts. Find the parts, just search for Voidrig in the crafting menu and you should be able to see all your Voidrig parts, which is basically what you need to craft your Necramech. First you craft the casing, engine, capsule and weapon pod. This will take you 12 hours to complete, and once all parts are done you can then craft the Voidrig, and this will take you 72 hours to complete. After that has crafted and you're ready to claim it, just claim it and then head to your arsenal to actually equip it. You can find this in the right section. Down at the bottom you will be able to equip your Necramech here. Once that is done, you should have gotten your Necramech summon ability, which you can find in your gear wheel, and just equip it. Now in missions that allows your Necramech to be spawned, you will be able to use your gear wheel and just spawn it through that. And that is basically how you farm the Necramech in the new update Jade Shadows. There's also a second way of obtaining your Necramech, but this requires trading with other players. You can basically buy the full Voidrig set from another player that is fully crafted from around 60 to 70 Plat. And if you're looking how to farm Plat, I do have a fairly beginner-friendly guide for it. Which is the most basic form of farming Plat through doing Void Relics. And then trading those things you get through the Void Relics to other players for Plat, and then just buy your Voidrig through that. But keep in mind, doing the farming for the Voidrig will learn you a lot of different mechanics in the game and also where you get certain resources. But if you do want to buy it, you can do that. I do recommend buying from Warframe.market instead of buying it in the in-game market, because that will cost you a lot more Plat than actually buying from another player. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's basically it for the video. So that is how you get your Necramech or Voidrig in Warframe. Before we end, if you are looking for a clan or do want to join a community clan in Warframe called The Community, feel free to let me know in the comments or on the Discord server. We are slowly building up the clan, we should have all blueprints soon and we should be ready to go. Also, if there's anything I missed in the video, feel free to leave a comment down below so we can actually help other players out, because this is a really tedious mission to get into the later game of Warframe. So yeah, if you found the video helpful, feel free to like the video, as I really appreciate that. Also, if you're looking for more Warframe guides, feel free to check out the channel, and would be really appreciated if you give it a subscribe down below. That's it, like, subscribe, and join the Discord, join the dojo, all of that. See you next time in the next video.